So welcome to the Live Beyond podcast. My name is McFarlane Muredi. Unfortunately today my partner in crime is not with me, Coach Lloyd. And he's normally here steering the ship, and I'm a bit nervous because without him I feel like there's an imbalance in my life. So our podcast is mainly about inspiration, all those cool things, you know, like inspiration, going out there, soaring like a bird. But the nice thing about it is that we get people that actually do it. It's not like that motivational talk stuff that people do that, you know, reach within and find. No, we actually do it. So with us today is Ian. Ian, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure. And we're honored to have someone of your caliber joining us on the Live Beyond podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know about caliber, but thank you.
So let's maybe start at the beginning of your journey, right? Yeah. Were you always one of those oaks that used to do like, you know those long distance, what was it, long distance at school again?
Cross country.
Cross country, were you like a cross country oak?
No, I hated cross country. I was forced to do cross country once a week. And I used to run barefoot, strange enough, because I never had running shoes. But what I found is that we ran through these flay areas with lots of mud. So I ended up doing quite well because everybody else had these shoes on that were full of mud, and I was able to run through the mud quite easily. So I did do a bit of cross country, but I only ran once a week. And I had no interest whatsoever, and I felt forced to do it because I loved soccer and I loved hockey, and those were my sports, and I had no interest in running whatsoever.
So as a lighty, right, were you always running around? Were you one of those kids that just could not be stopped? You know, were your parents always saying, yeah, sit down? You know, they couldn't wait for you to sleep.
I think not so much hyperactive, jumping around, but I was always very active. So I had an older brother. He's 18 months older than me, and he just drove me. So I was trying to keep up with him all the time. And we were always on bicycles. We were cycling around the neighborhood. We were always very busy, be it swimming in the local dam, whatever it might be. We were very busy. When
you speak about the neighborhood, where was that? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northcliffe when I was younger. So, you know, very much having a big mountain close by me, which was always something that you're talking about inspiration earlier. Mountains are inspiring things.
Yeah, no, we always used to go to Northcliffe Hill, but when we were much older because it was the best view to get when you were high. But we won't get into that. You know, when you're a teen, you just try all the hard things. So growing up in Northcliffe, where did you go to school? And, you know, did you participate in a lot of school sports?
I did. I grew up with a father who was a Springbok. So he was a Springbok hockey player. So sport was always part of what we did. So I can remember my earliest memories, my dad telling me how to bat with a straight bat, even when I was 5 years old, photos from the family albums of me playing cricket. And again, having an elder brother trying to keep up all the time. My dad, I always remember he never used to take it out, but he had his Springbok blazer in the cupboard, and you knew that, you know, he'd reached the highest level in the sport that he played. So very inspirational to always try and work hard to get his acknowledgement and his approval. So, yeah.
But more than that, also having an older brother that you almost like look up to, but you also compete with in a way. But with him being older, he was always pushing you because obviously he was, you know, obviously bigger, stronger, faster. Did that in a way also make you, one, very competitive, and two, also, you know, want to, you know, almost aspire to be like your older brother, and then it's also your dad in the background as well?
Yeah. Well, my brother was very much a groundbreaker. He wasn't only 18 months older than me, he was also the biggest guy in his standard. And I was one of the smaller guys. So the gap was even bigger. So I never really competed against him. He always gave me space. He never overwhelmed me at all. So he always gave me that. He supported me and would say, come on, you know, I'll help you up the mountain or wherever we were going. It would always be supportive, not so much competitive. And that was the same later on when we went into hockey together. So we played hockey together, and he was always a bit older than me, and then eventually we got into the same team, and then we always just cooperated with each other.
Did you get first team colours? Did you guys ever go up to first team in high school?
Yes, I was fortunate to get that, yeah.
So school sport, right? How important would you say that is for children growing up? I mean, because that's ideally the foundation, right, of, where almost like your formative years in terms of your physicality, what you're going to do, what you aspire to do, and what keeps you healthy. Is how much of a role does it play in shaping a person's life, even, later on in his life?
I think it's crucial, and I think what's missing in school sport, team sport is fantastic. Cricket, soccer, rugby, hockey, those sports are fantastic to develop motor skills, to develop strength, to develop the ability to work in a team and realize that sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to lose. But one of the problems with those sports is they're too focused on that particular sport. I, for instance, used to practice hockey because I wasn't particularly good at it. And as I said, I had a father who was a Springbok. So I was working all the time to try and do better. And I practiced my skills a tremendous amount. But soon after I left school, I stopped playing hockey. And the same with soccer, exactly the same thing. As soon as I left school, I stopped playing soccer. So I believe that school sports should be focused on getting everybody active. It shouldn't be focused on who's the best and what team is the best. It should be focused on, a school should be judged by how many people are active in that school rather than how well their first team does. And I come from that environment, and when my kids went through school, it was exactly the same, where it was focused on how good the first team was. It's not about how good the first team was, it's how many people are participating.
That's something quite important, and we'll go into that, because I mean that's also like the psychology of how you should be supportive as a parent, etc., especially around school sport. But I picked up on something that's quite important that you said, that I played hockey right up until high school. Were you playing in varsity as well, or it ended at high school?
I played university. So with soccer, I played competitively until I got into the Air Force, and I then broke my collarbone and I stopped playing soccer at that stage. Okay. So up until school level, we had a fabulous soccer team at school, and it was one of the most wonderful times that I had in my life because we did exceptionally well. We were in the top 8 in the country. It used to be a competition called Coca-Cola Shield, which they brought teams together from all over the country. And we had a wonderful team and a great coach, and we played lovely soccer and we enjoyed it. In fact, we had our reunion recently, and I was chatting to some of the guys. But fabulous soccer. The problem was that the finals were in Durban. The top 8 finals were in Durban. Yes. And you can imagine a group of 15 youngsters in matric ending up in Durban, and many of them for the first time. So we did no further. I think we came 7th in the tournament. So that wonderful teamwork, great memories, but we could have done better at that tournament. So yeah, so very, very active in terms of school sport.
But that's where the big problem is, right? Because we play sport, throughout school, throughout high school, even right up until university. Then we get into that rut.
Yes.
We get into that rut where now you've forgotten about school, you've forgotten about running through the grass, that camaraderie, that joy that you get out either from scoring a goal or playing together, or that activity that one has in their life. And you progress in your job, you do very well, and then you start gaining weight, you start getting ill, things like diabetes start, playing a role. With us, it's the belly fat because you start drinking a lot of beer, etc., etc. And, you almost, very stationary, you either sleeping, you get into your car and you're sitting at your desk in the office. And that's where a lot of illnesses they then start. When was the turning point for you outside of high school to say you want to start training again, you want to start being physically active, you want to start running again?
Okay, so you're quite right. The problem with team sports really is that you need to have a team. And as soon as you get out of school, people's lives change, as you said. So they have other priorities. So your team suddenly becomes less cohesive because guys must practice. They're out having a party on a Saturday night. They're not at the game on a Sunday morning. So suddenly your performance gets diluted. So you want to do well, but the other guys in the team now have other priorities. And that's where the penny drops with endurance sports, where what you put in is what you get out. there's a direct connection between what effort you put in and how you perform.
When did your journey begin? Did it start at the Air Force or was it after that?
It was after that. So I carried on playing hockey after I left school. I was able to participate in some tournaments. I used to play what was called Transvaal at that stage, senior provincial hockey, which was wonderful, and I loved it. We had tournaments, and it was great. But it got to a point where I said, right, that's it. I'm no longer going to play hockey. The key driver for me was AstroTurf was introduced at that level. I'd always played on grass. And I remember playing my first tournament against youngsters who are now in the under 20, and I was over 20, and they'd grown up on AstroTurf.
Yes.
And it was a different game. And I realized at that point that hockey, that was the end of my career. And that's when I started endurance sport.
When you speak about the introduction of AstroTurf, how old are you? What I feel like
it is quite interesting, but AstroTurf, yes, it was. There was no Astro when I started playing hockey.
So how old are you now? Because you look fit. You're probably like in your 50s, maybe?
Yeah, I'm 59.
59?
Yeah.
Jeez, I need to get into gym, Making me feel bad. 59?
Yeah.
Sure. So, which when you say endurance, you got introduced into endurance sport.
Yeah.
Where did you start? Was it cycling? Was it running?
It was quite simple. In fact, looking around here and looking at all these bikes and triathlon and so on, a friend of my dad walked in. My first job was in the bank, so he walked into the bank and I recognized him and I had a chat to him, and he'd just done Ironman the week before.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him. And the penny dropped, I want to do Ironman.
Yeah.
So that was where everything started. So a couple of months later, I went out. At that stage, again, I'm going to show my age, Ironman was a kayaking Ironman. It wasn't a swimming one. Yep, you needed to paddle a kayak. So I went out on the same day, bought myself a racing kayak, which I didn't know how to paddle. I bought a racing bike and I bought a pair of running shoes, all on the same day. And that's how I started.
And which was what was your first one? Did you do a full Ironman? Did you train to do a full Ironman,
yes,
or did you start at the halves?
No, started straight into Ironman because that was what I'd set my sights on. And I seem to remember it was in the November and Ironman was in February at that stage. So the events were slightly different to what you guys are used to. 21K paddle.
21K paddle?
21K is around the entire circumference of Hartbeespoort Dam. So 21K. So to give an indication in terms of time, that was an hour 40.
Yes.
So that was the amount of time we spent in the boat. I'm not sure how long does the 3.8 swim take.
I think they also want us to swim about 1 hour something, somewhere around there. I think it's also about 1 hour 40 minutes for the swim, but it's a 3.8 kilometer swim.
Okay, so then it's similar then in terms of the effort. The big thing with the kayaks is to stay in. You don't want to swim. So the kayaking was 21 Ks. The cycle was a bit shorter. It was 110.
Okay.
And then a 42 K.
Oh, shorter. 110 is shorter.
Yeah.
No, it's not shorter. So the bug bit then with triathlons, right?
Definitely.
How long did you keep doing that? And so it's easy to say I want to do Ironman. What did it take to start the training, because that's where where you need a lot of discipline, a lot of commitment, and also ideally just a lot of brevity. What I mean, because it's not just something that you decide to do and then you go out and do it.
It's about being very sure about what you want to do, and that nothing's going to stop you getting there. And then the biggest challenge really was to keep balance in the kayak, not to fall out. Particularly with Ironman, at that stage there were 1,000 competitors in kayak. So when you start off, it's the water's churned up and it's extremely difficult. And as you move forward, 1,000 boats move forward. They create a low pressure behind the boats, and a massive wave comes in behind you. So you really struggle to keep in that boat. At times you're at 45, not 45 degrees, but maybe 20 degrees angle. Yes. The front of the boat disappears. So really keeping in that boat is a real challenge.
I don't
And
know
so
if I'm
that
more
was
scared
the
of
biggest.
swimming or the kayaking. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the biggest challenge, and I remember that was my concern. So I was always fearful about falling out of the boat. So the other things didn't seem as intimidating.
And so besides Ironman, were there other races all over the country? So how were you training? Were there practice races that you did during that time?
I didn't do any practice triathlons at that stage. The first one that I didn't do anything. I did, my first marathon was on Ironman.
Wow.
So I never ran a marathon before I did my first Ironman. That was where I learned it. I've never learned how to cycle properly, and by that I mean in a bunch.
Yes.
I've always been, call it in a time trial situation, so I've never learned how to cycle properly and slipstream and work in a bunch, and I've never built up that confidence on the bike. So it's always been working on my own.
You know, it's one thing to train with a team and as you say, you know, work with people, because you almost get motivated. You know, it's like almost like a buddy system that you have, and it makes things that much more easier. When you say you Lone Rangered this whole thing, what sort of discipline did you have to, you know, instill in yourself? You know, because there's no one waking up and say, hey, what time are we going? You know, when are we doing the E to E? You know what I mean? Or what time are we meeting for E to E? You have to now almost like get yourself up, encourage yourself, and keep doing it one day after the other. What does it take to be able to get to that point?
I learned a while later what it was, and it was in fact Bruce Fordyce who explained it to me.
Yes.
He's a coward, and I'm also a coward. I don't want to suffer. On the day, I don't want to suffer, so I'm going to train properly for the event. Some guys will undertrain and they'll suffer on the day. I'm not. I'm a coward. I don't like suffering on the day, so I will go and do my homework and do it properly. And I've always enjoyed researching what I'm involved with, so immediately started reading about the greats at that time, who was Dave Scott, who was the top Ironman of the time, and learning about aerodynamics on the bike and watching Tour de France and how the guys cycle, and learning, do you put down power or do you use cadence? Running the same thing, studying the great coaches as well to see what were they telling their athletes to do, and gradually building up from a scientific base. What did I need to do? And then later in life, obviously studying Bruce and seeing he was the guy who really put all the training side together so well. And then looking at other cyclists and kayakers to see how they managed to do the best they could do.
Oh, it's a great segue to speak about Bruce. How did you guys meet? When did you start working together?
It was actually at the inception of parkrun. So the first time I met Bruce was after there was one park run at that stage, Delta Park. I went down, I enjoyed it, and I thought, right, I'm going to start one. I've always wanted to share my passion of endurance sport with others, and I thought that was a wonderful way to do it, that I could put something back. Because by that stage, I'd most probably been involved in endurance sports for 25, 30 years, so it was time, I felt, to get others involved. And so that's when I made contact with Bruce. We spoke about it, and in fact, we launched the third park run in South Africa. Rudaport beat us by a couple of weeks.
What would you say are some of the pearls of wisdom that you got from him, and how did it also change your outlook from an endurance sport point of view, especially around running?
Okay, so I'd say the first thing is knowing when to run hard and when to run easily. So that would be the main thing. That training is an art and a science, and you need to work out how to balance effort and recovery. So I'd say that's the main thing that he taught me. Also to be meticulous about your preparation, to really have a careful look at what you're doing, how you're doing it. Look at people around you. Never feel that you have all the answers. Look to others to try and understand how you can be better, and continually try to improve. I think it's Dave Beresford, who was the head of Sky Cycling, who had this process of incremental improvements, focusing on every small element. And the one thing that he did, for instance, which is a stroke of genius, and Bruce was similar in this way, or he is similar in this way, that he got the guys to wash their hands and to scrub under their nails. And why did he do that? To stop them getting infections and flu. Because he studied it and he could see that every one of the cyclists would always have a certain amount of time off, either from flu or tummy bugs or whatever. And through doing that, he is able to get the guys to train possibly 4 weeks extra a year.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that's just one example of a very small thing, but that makes a lot of difference. And that was before COVID. So after COVID, I think everybody became more aware of their hygiene, hand hygiene, and so on. But they were already doing that then. And then it goes down to the bikes and the fine-tuning of the aerodynamics and positioning on the bike, and every single element. You're not sure which one in that mix puts you ahead, but it's an accumulation of all those elements that if you do them all right, your chances of success are really good.
So here's the thing, right? We all, we all aspire to, either do the Comrades or do the local 10K or do a park run. But the secret is always to get out of bed and wake up in the morning and do it, or come back from work, drop your bags off, and put your takis on and go running. Where does it start? Where does it start, and how do you sort of set your mind or change your mind to get to that point? Because we'd all love to do the Comrades, or we'd all love to do the park run, or do like a 21K or the Soweto Marathon, or whatever it is, But how do you set your mind to a point of getting up and getting out and actually doing it?
I think it's about embracing the fact that you can do it. I think that's really what I do. And I always look for opportunities to get out and enjoy it. The night before last was a super full moon.
Yes.
I wanted to get out there and go and run and enjoy it. And I did. And on the one side, the sun was setting. On the other side, the moon was coming up. And spectacular. When I drove in here, there's a billboard just opposite Alex saying, chase the sunset. It's a Corona beer ad. And chase the sunset. There's a sunset every day. There's a sunrise every day. And if you embrace that and see that as your driver, that's what I get out for. You forget about the fact that you've got to get your foot out of bed. And sometimes the weather's really bad, but embrace that as well. Go and run in the rain. How many people are running in the rain? They're not. Everybody's fearful of the rain. They go and hide. Whereas if you just get out in the rain, you've got a rain jacket on, it's the most wonderful experience. It's like being a kid running and splashing in puddles.
Puddles of water.
Why not? And so there are all these things. When you go to a new city, look at the places where you can run. Go and find where those landmarks. Go and run to them. And normally you run around them early in the morning. There are no tourists.
Yes.
It's this whole wonderful experience, and you might see a couple of locals around. And it's an incredible experience. It's
almost like you get the city. You get the city to yourself without the disturbance of, as you say, the photographers and everyone and all the tourists. But consistency is also important, because that's what you talk about. I mean, I remember we had a conversation once, and it's actually something quite profound around that. That you get to see, if you run every day, you get to see 365 sunrises.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Especially if you run in the morning, and that's it's something that's quite powerful, because how many people actually get that experience and know what it's like, and it's almost as if when you leave the house, especially at the time when it's still slightly dark, and then by the time that you get to 2 or 3 kilometers, then the sun starts rising. You almost hear the earth wake up. The birds start chirping. They start getting a little bit louder. You hear the one car, the 2 cars, and just life starts. And it's you get to experience that, and very few people, they go straight into the rat race. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think it sort of eases you into the day. But what I also wanted to find out is, how does that then improve on other parts of your life? Because that's the health side of it, right? But does it help psychologically? Does it help with your mental fitness as well? How important is running? Because, I say to a lot of people that it's not just about running. It's what it also does for your mind. And we had a conversation about it as well with Coach Lloyd about, the effect of decluttering your mind while you're running. Have you felt that it also helps people in that way?
Without doubt. So there are different types of running.
Yes.
We're talking now about the easier run when you go out.
Yes.
I had a wonderful experience 2 days ago where I was running and there was a field of cows. And for some reason, one of the cows decided to just walk next to me. And it's quite amazing. When a cow's walking, it's going at your running pace.
Wow.
It was quite interesting. And for some reason, this cow, and it was a beautiful Jersey cow, a dairy cow, just trotting along the fence next to me. And I looked across and the whole field of cows was moving along behind me, most probably 50 cows. So that's that inspirational side. And it doesn't always happen, but sometimes there's this wonderful thing that happens when you're out running. But at other times, just to step back to that, there's tremendous value in running in a green environment. There's a lot of research around it from a psychological point of view as how it refreshes you, how you get in tune with the natural movement of the earth. As you said, you become very aware of sunrises, sunsets, different seasons. At the moment, we at the stage where you're talking about birds earlier, where suddenly all these migrant birds are arriving. And each day I run, I see different birds arriving. And it just starts happening. My son's birthday is on the 22nd of September, and the swallows haven't arrived yet where I am. I'm looking out for them because they arrive. And once they're here, they're everywhere.
Yes.
But they're not here yet. But they're going to be here in a day or two. And so every day I'm out, I'm looking where the swallows, when they're going to arrive. And they're a little bit late this year. So that's the easy and the lovely part of it, and being in touch with nature and the soothing side of it. It also gives you a time to think and a time to plan from a business point of view. Gives you that ability to think and plan and be very creative. I think a lot of creative thoughts come to me when I run. I like running on my own. I like running with people, but I'm very happy to run on my own as well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So Ian, we're going to get back to that and find out about your journey and some of the work that you've done and how you've helped people. Yeah. Take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll pick up from there. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for following the Live Beyond podcast. Please press the subscribe button. And in the section below, leave your comments. Let us know what you think about the podcast and any future guests you would like to see. Also, would like to say thank you to our partners and our sponsors for making this platform possible. And we continue.
So, while we took a bit of a break, right? You spoke about exercise snacking, which I found absolutely fascinating. What's that all about?
Okay, so it's doing a little bit of exercise throughout the day.
Uh-huh.
So rather than having a specific gym session where you focus on getting really sweaty and working hard, it's a case of just doing a little bit each day or during the day, a little bit each during the day, little pieces of exercise throughout the day. And normally you'd want to do them so that you don't build up a sweat, so that you can just do a short exercise. It also gives you a break from sitting in a chair. Exercise snacking can be taking the stairs instead of the escalator, or instead of a lift, is just walking up and down stairs. And it's quite surprising how much exercise you can get if you work in a building and you take the stairs rather than the elevator.
So an idea behind this, for example, is set yourself a target. So I want to do 100 push-ups in a day, right? So I wake up in the morning, before I get into the shower, I do a quick 100 push-ups. No, not a quick 100. A quick 20 push-ups, right?
Yeah,
so that's my
5
20 done.
or
even 5 just to start, right? And then come out the shower, maybe do another 5. Wipe yourself down, whatever, go make your coffee, get ready, whatever. And then just before you leave the house, there's my 5. Then you've already done 15. You're left with the balance of that.
Correct.
And so throughout the day, try and do your 5, and incrementally get more. from 5 then to 10,
Correct.
but then go, stick around to try and doing 100. Because by the end of the week, then you've done 500 push-ups if you get that right.
Yeah, quite right. And you've got the benefit. So
Yes.
without having to go into a gym and really sweat it out, you can start. I think that also part of the attraction of doing that is the accessibility.
Yes.
If you decide you want to do it, start it right now. I've started a challenge now. You heard my age. I said, before I'm 60, I want to do 10 proper pull-ups. Okay, but doesn't mean I can just go and start and do 10 now.
Yes.
I've got to start gradually. I've got to do one a couple of times during the day, and then I'll build up gradually. So I'm on that journey myself. So it never ends. It's not that you get to a point where you totally fit and you're totally in control of everything. No, always set yourself something new to do. And in running, I've done that. I've always done different events. But the same with exercise. Try and keep it fresh.
It's quite interesting because we always start on Monday, right? No, start on Monday.
Yeah.
And then all the Mondays throughout the year just go by. You
Quite right.
never start on Monday.
Yeah.
So it's about starting now.
Right now. Yep.
So we also, you explained to us the first aspect of running. So that's almost like the recreational, fun type of running where you're not necessarily competing, but you're just starting just so that you can be fit. There's also the other side where you want to compete, where you want to do races. How different is that from just wanting to wake up and see the sunrises?
Okay, so when it gets to that side of sport, that's where where you get paid. Yes. for the effort that you put in and for the training. I absolutely enjoy pushing myself to the limit.
Yes.
And I think something that not everybody sees it this way, but I do. At any time, you can push yourself to the limit. You don't have to be fit, but based on your current conditioning, your genetics, and the conditions on the day, you can go as hard as you can. And if you learn how to do that, that's where the real joy of any sport comes in, is to optimize your performance at that specific time.
It's crazy that you say that because, and I think I almost did it subconsciously, right? I mean, when I decided to do Ironman, I was weighing 106 kilograms.
Wow.
And I only had maybe about 4, 5, 6 months, give or take, to train and do the full Ironman, which was crazy and stupid in anybody's books, you know what I mean? And then I did it, finished it, whatever. I was totally broken, but I pushed my body to a limit that I'd never, ever done before.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it was close to stupid, but I did it. I was inspired. I did it and I finished. And I think I suffered a little bit from PTSD after that, right?
Okay,
because
it was that hard.
Yeah, it was that hard, and I just couldn't get myself back into training. I couldn't get on the bike again. I went for weeks without running. I went for weeks, and remember, now we were training almost every other weekend in the build up to the Ironman. Quite disciplined, out there with Coach Lloyd, out there with the team, shooting content, doing different stuff with everyone. So there was a lot of work that was put in before the full Ironman. We did that. Then after that, it started getting a bit lazy, not really wanting to go train, not wanting to go cycle. Life just, took its toll. And then all of a sudden, I woke up and realized that we had to do Ironman Durban. I've probably done one cycle, and I probably maybe did one long swim, right? In the months between March and I think July or June when the Durban Ironman is. Yes, it was a half, but you just don't go do it. But that's how I went. I went in. I hadn't trained. I was not physically fit. I hadn't been on a bike. I hadn't been swimming. I hadn't been running. But I finished. It was difficult for me as well. Because I think I made it just 4 minutes before cutoff.
Yeah.
I think I got out the water with 30 seconds left before cutoff. The cycle, it wasn't that bad because it's just on that Mhlanga road and back. And it goes back to what you're saying, that if you can push your body to the zenith, you can actually do it. But it's something that I wouldn't advise anyone, right? But where does that come from? Where does the mind and the body go to be able to find itself to that point?
That's the fascination of running. And that's the real joy of it, is that your brain regulates exercise performance. So the fact that you'd done it before, you'd done a full Ironman, your brain had been through the process. It knew you could do it. Think of your brain as a regulator.
Yes.
It needs to decide, are you going to kill yourself or are you going to survive? Am I going to give the working muscles enough oxygen to do what you want it to do? at the expense of your brain, of your heart. So you got to learn, you got to teach your brain that you're capable and that it can trust you with what you're doing. So that first Ironman that you did, you managed to finish it, strange enough, just within the cutoff, because your brain had worked out how much you needed to do. Yes. The second time you did it, it was easier because your brain now knew, I could do a full Ironman, you can do the 21, and what had it learned? It had learned effort and distance. Effort and distance on the swim, effort and distance on the bike, effort and distance on the run.
It was bloody sore, though.
It would have been sore.
Make it easier, you know.
It would have been sore because that's part of your central, what Tim Noakes talks about, the central governor.
Yes.
Or we just talk generally about your brain controlling exercise performance. And it works at an oxygen level, if you want to look at it like that, and a pain level. So the pain level is much slower, where if you get an injury, your brain's going to slow you down. So stop doing that. Eventually, an injury will develop into a stress fracture and will stop you because now you're doing too much. That's part of your central governor working. Same goes with on the oxygen side, where you're splitting where you need your oxygen in your body. Think of your brain as managing your energy budget.
Yes.
And the more you train, the better you get at managing your energy budget. So when we're training, it's not about doing intervals and running distance. It's about training your brain what you're capable of, because your body comes along for the drive. Your muscles can do what you want it to do. If you think of a sprinter, they can sprint, but then you're going to run out of oxygen. Yes. So you have the muscle capability of going much faster. The trick is teaching your brain, it's that your brain learns how far you can put maximum effort in over distance. So we see a kid at a park run sprint out for the first K, and then they crash and burn because their brain's just saying to them, you're going too fast. That you can't do it anymore. You have to stop. Yeah. And anybody who doesn't believe in the central governor, try and push yourself too fast. Try to run too fast. Your brain's going to stop you in your tracks. Yes. You can't get past it. It's a natural phenomenon.
So the central governor that you talk about, is it what the layman would call muscle memory, or is it different?
It's to do with muscle development, but it's more on a neurological level.
Okay.
It's to do with the neural system and with the brain understanding distance and time. And if you think, when you go and run, the millions of parameters that your brain's working on, and we in Client Soccer, we rely on a heart rate monitor or a GPS. If you give your brain the chance, Bruce never ran Comrades with a watch. He ran with his brain. And he knew what effort he could put in over 90 Ks. And he told me that at the start of Comrades, he would first of all get himself into the position where he was ready to run 5.5 hours for Comrades. So he didn't look at the opposition. He just said he was going to run 5.5 hours on that day. And if anybody was quicker than him, they could beat him. But if they couldn't run 5.5 hours, they weren't going to beat him that day.
5.5 hours. What sort of pace are we?
It's crazy. It's 3.5 minutes a K roundabout, between 3.5 and 3:40 per K.
I'm in pain already.
It is. It's quite phenomenal. But for him, in the condition that he was in, is the same as you running a 5K or a 10K at your optimal performance. Because you can't go faster than what you optimally can over a certain distance. And the sensation shouldn't be too much different other than call it the physical pain in your legs that develops over an ultra event. But the effort in terms of energy and oxygen and taking in energy supplies is much the same.
So Ian, I mean, obviously the sort of campaign that we're running and having this podcast, for that matter, is all about Team Live Beyond, right? The podcast is called Live Beyond because for me, my sort of finish line, right? It's about living beyond the finish line. My finish line was to say I needed to finish an Ironman. I needed to do an Ironman in honor of Andre Peel, who died in an accident, right? But everyone has a finish line, right? Is your finish line to do the Comrades? Is your your finish line writing that book? Is it whatever it is? So we've sort of joined hands with you guys, the Fordyce Fusion, as well as Team Live Beyond. How do we inspire that person sitting there in the office that has always wanted to run, always wanted to cycle, or always wanted to swim, especially with black people, right? Because the first thing that they do is like, swimmer 3.8, where? You know what I mean? It's always that conversation because I think they're not worried about the cycling, they're not worried about the running, which is also very, very hard. It's always about the swimming, right? How do we now inspire those people to get to a point where they can get into that pool, they can do that park run, and they can eventually then get onto that bike and then hopefully do a triathlon? And even if they don't do any of the three, all three disciplines in terms of a triathlon, but at least go do competitive swimming, do the mid-mar, because that's a feat in itself, or do the 94.7, or do the Cape Epic, whatever. How do we start speaking to that ordinary person to live beyond their finish line?
It's an interesting topic. First of all, where's my finish line? I think you asked me that. So I don't have one. And my main focus in my life is to run to the maximum of my own genetic potential for as long as possible. So I want to run as well as I can for as long as possible.
Yes.
So therefore, I don't have an event in mind. I'm not driven by an event because I know I'm going to do various events. Throughout my running, I've done a variety of things, from Ironman to Doozy, and then another year I would have focused on one of the toughest races I've ever done, 3,000 meter steeplechase. I would have done cross country, run the Otter Trail, decided to run to the top of the Drakensberg and back.
Yes.
So every time there's something new. So it's about to inspire people is to say there's an adventure. You've got no idea where your body can take you.
Yes.
And it's not just about the hard endurance. It's about what we spoke earlier, the places where I've been in a kayak on my 2 feet that many people never get to experience in their lives. So I've been all over and this body's taken me places, and it's phenomenal. That I also windsurf. So having been out in the ocean and seen flying fish, it's to say get active. Don't let your body limit you. Yes. Is your body a cart that you pull along with you, or is it an engine that takes you places? And that's really where you got to get to.
Yes.
Is to say, don't let your body, it's not a liability, it's an asset.
Yes.
Use it. It's the most incredible thing you'll ever own. I'm quite interested in cars, and Jay Leno's a US celebrity, and he's got this magnificent collection of cars.
Yes.
And his cars are finely tuned, and their quarter-mile speeds are phenomenal, and he's a very interesting guy, and he's incredibly intelligent, he's focused. But he himself, he's not in a position to optimize his own body. And I look at it and say, imagine if you could go and apply all that passion that you have for your car collection to your own body. It's a profound thing. But I have a body that I go and optimize the performance of it at least once a week. I go and I run as hard as I can. It's like going to a racetrack. And imagine having, a high-performance motor vehicle in your garage that you never drive. And it's the same with your body. Yes. Your body's there. And it doesn't matter what state of fitness you're at, you can get out and enjoy it. And it starts from that first step and getting moving. And once you get moving, but you normally need a goal to be focused on. And I don't think things like weight or fitness, these are vague concepts.
Yes.
A good thing to do is something like, say, I'm going to do the Otter Trail.
Yes.
Or I'm going to walk up Table Mountain in December. When I get to Table Mountain, I'm not going to catch the cable car. I'm going to go up Platteklip Gorge, and I'm going to walk to the top, and I'm going to walk back down again. And then you build up gradually to be able to do that. So I'd say that's where the driver comes, is to just liberate yourself.
Yes.
You have this wonderful body. It's capable of the most amazing physical feats. And that's why the Comrades has been so good for people. They see it on TV. They see people finishing, and they're inspired because they see those are normal people. They're not super athletes. They're people just like us, like me. I remember watching Comrades and saying, I want to do it. And it's the same for a variety of events. It's just we have so much more choice now in terms of what to do.
It is. I mean, I think the world has opened up in terms of sports, in terms of a variety of sports. I mean, now there's what's that thing, paddling or whatever, the funny little tennis racket,
Yes.
Which is taken off, all over the world. And I think for me, what's quite profound with what you're saying is that, it's almost like chasing that adventure, seeking that adventure. And it doesn't have to be something massive, as you say, like Ironman, but it's, hiking up that mountain, as you're saying, it's all about starting. And I think for us, that's what we're trying to do, to say that, it's possible for anyone. And I'm a prime example of that. It's not me beating my chest or anything, but I was a big guy. I weighed 106 kilograms. I took on this feat, and I actually did it. And I still pinch myself because I don't believe that I actually got over that finish line. But what it says to me, and what it should say to a lot of people, is that it is possible. It can be done. You know what I mean? And I think it's also now being able to go back to people and tell them, get up, go out there and do it. And we all have different finish lines. But as you say, your body's like that Ferrari sitting in the garage, but you're not driving it, you're not doing anything. It's just sitting there looking great. And you speak sometimes to a lot of people, and you say, "Why don't you run?" I said, "I can't run." And it doesn't make sense. You walk every day. What do you mean you can't run?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we see it all the time with people that once they start, it's just incredible what they can achieve. And we see it all the time. That it's just a case of consistency, being focused, getting out there and changing your mindset about exercise, that it's not punishment, it's enjoyment. And sometimes it's hard. You do need to get out of bed some days when you don't feel like exercising. But generally, it's a big adventure.
Brilliant. So we've got this collaboration that has taken place between Fordyce Fusion as well as Team Live Beyond. What's the sort of, first of all, what do you guys do at Fordyce Fusion?
Okay, I was very fortunate.
Besides run.
Yeah. Well, we don't just look at running.
Yes.
We look at a variety of, we want to get people active.
Okay.
So that's the first step, is once people are active, be it walking, strength and conditioning exercises, just realizing that their body's capable of so much more, as we said earlier. And it's a gradual process of saying, right, we've been through the process with so many people to get to a point where one of the things that Bruce loves to see, he's also the president of Parkrun South Africa. If you want to get Bruce excited, go and tell him that you started Parkrun and you ran Comrades.
Wow.
He just loves that.
Yes.
And so many people, I've spent time with Bruce, they'll walk up to him and say to him, "Bruce, you know what? I started on Parkrun. I couldn't run. I did a walk to Parkrun, and then I eventually ended up doing Comrades." And Bruce will tell them that if you read his books, he started running in 1976 with 2 laps around a rugby field. That's where he started. And then he gradually increased his running until he got to the point where he ran his first marathon, ran his first Comrades, and then eventually excelled at the sport. But everybody's got to start somewhere. And it's to just inspire people to get going. And I think part of what we're doing now is to get that person who's not active at the moment and inspire them. And we all have a duty to share the passion of what we enjoy, because we shouldn't keep it quiet.
Yes.
I bumped into a school friend who I hadn't seen for 35 years. And when he was at school, he was a great athlete and he was fantastic. And now he's fighting type 2 diabetes. I just said to him, "Come on, let's get you going.
Yeah.
Exercise, we're going to control this. We're going to get on top of this." And it is possible. You just need to have somebody to inspire you. And people are inspired through things like Parkrun, through challenges as you started. Yes. And once you've got the spark, keep it going. I bumped into a guy this week. I was out running on the road and he needed directions. And I think I had a Comrades t-shirt on. And he said, "Yeah, I've done 14. I said, "Why aren't you running?" He said, "No, I'm working." I said, "Get up half an hour earlier and go and run tomorrow morning."
Yes.
And that's what it's about. It's not about the events. It's about being active.
So, Ian, you said something quite nice earlier on. We spoke about inspiring people to actually, enjoy what we've enjoyed, for them to be able to experience what we've experienced from the runs, from challenging ourselves, etc., etc. And hence the sort of fusion between Fordyce Fusion and Team Live Beyond. For a lot of people, they meet us in the street. Either they'll meet Gugu or they'll meet Lloyd, and they want to become a part of this. And not everyone wants to do the 3 disciplines, but they've got a choice whether they want to do swimming. They've got aqua athlete with that, and then when it comes to running and cycling, then the people can come to you. Now, once they've gone to the point of at least signing on, becoming a member and a part of Team Live Beyond, we then move them over to you, either for the running or for the cycling. What process follows after that? Is there an assessment that gets done? Do you look at body weight? Do you look at the goals? How do you then get a person to a point where they can start and then assess them and make sure that they get to a point where they can actually do their first race or do their first run, or ideally then improve if they've already been running but they've become a part of the Team Live Beyond?
Okay, right. So we do a questionnaire to get a background on the person, where they are at the moment, where's their starting point. So much like strategy, where are you now?
Okay.
And where do you want to be? And then we put in the part in the middle, how do we do it? So that's really what it's about. It's that normal or a typical strategic planning process. You have a specific goal in mind, set up what you need to do, look at the person's literally strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
Look at what opportunities and threats there are to them. Threats are things like injuries. Opportunities are where can they train, where do they live, what time do they have available? Because each individual has a different set of circumstances. So we need to look at those circumstances and work out a training process for them.
That's called a customized program, right?
That's right. And also based on where they're at, in terms of how much mileage they can do a week, what their performance is. They're people of different levels of performance. And the program also adjusts according to how they're performing, both in terms of distance and the pacing. Because Bruce taught us something, that the pacing of your exercise needs to be spot on.
There's also an app involved, right? So you download that. And what sort of information does the app have? And what sort of feedback does it give you? How do you then interact with it? And how are you involved with that app from a tracking point of view? Because obviously you want to see where a person starts, how they're improving, and what needs to be done once you've customized it for them.
Quite right. So, yes, we do have an app, but at the end of the day, behind it are people.
Yes.
It's not just a technological solution. We evaluate people on an individual basis, and they also have this cumulative knowledge of the people involved with Fordyce Fusion. Bruce, who really learned how to develop a training process, more than anything, his success at Comrades was his training. He was genetically gifted, but he worked out how to perform consistently year after year after year by developing a training process. And that's how we apply his knowledge to each individual. And then on top of that, we layer that knowledge with other coaches as well. You heard a little bit about myself. We have Shanae Bosman, who's won Comrades. She's run for 35 years. I think she's been to 10 or 15 world championships for cross country. Highly experienced, fantastic runner. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say how old she is, but she's 47 years old now. She still runs phenomenally well. She can run 5Ks in under 17 minutes still. So a phenomenal athlete, but also extremely knowledgeable, both in terms of strength and conditioning, about oxygen therapy. She's been through all of these processes. So very knowledgeable. And we've got other coaches who people maybe never heard of. There's a guy, Frank, who works with us. He's done 20 Comrade Silvers. Wow. Think of that, 2 decades of running Comrade Silvers every year.
What's a Comrade Silver for people that don't know?
Under 7.5 hours. So that's running Comrades in under 5 minutes a kilometer for 90 Ks. And doing that consistently again for 20 years.
I'd be farting rainbows if I could run a kilometer in 5 minutes. I mean, how do you get to that point? Because, I sort of like, I don't train consistently enough. Yes, that's also my fault. That's what I'm doing wrong, right? But where's that sweet spot? Where are we looking at getting right? So how should I be running my 5Ks to get to a point where I can, not necessarily competitively, because I'm not trying to win a 21K or a 42 or even Comrades, but what's the sweet spot for me to finish the Comrades in a good time, how should I be running my 5Ks? Because isn't that where it also starts?
It does. I think the answer is really, where do you want to be? And you can either go and try and run to your genetic potential, which is what I do. I try to run as well as I can for what I've been given. So Bruce will tell you that you must pick your parents carefully. and that's what he did well. He picked good parents, so he had good genetics, so he could run at a certain speed. It doesn't mean that the person who didn't pick their parents well can't enjoy being the best they can be, because that's really what it's about. I'm not an athlete who has performed at Bruce's level, but I've run to the best of my ability, and that's given me the satisfaction that I've enjoyed throughout my life.
You know, the crazy thing about it is that I've ran with Coach Lloyd, or the guys that ran water, and I'm looking at these guys are fat oak with a big boob, but he's just consistent. He's going one foot in front of the other. And I'm like, I look fitter than this. Like, I did a triathlon, but I just cannot keep up. And is it about that consistency of pace that'll eventually get you over the finish line? Because I see how they're running, and I maybe can keep up for 5Ks, and then after that I'm like, I can't run like this for the next 2 to 3 hours. No, I'm gonna die. So how do you sort of like also measure yourself up and get to a point where you once again know where that sweet spot is? Because I think for me, as I said, I'd be farting rainbows if I can do 6 minutes a kilometer at least.
Well, first of all, that guy ran away from you. If you'd stopped him and asked him, he'd tell you he's running 80 Ks a week.
Yes.
So he may look as if he's not putting in the effort. He is. That's why he could run away from you. So he's well conditioned. He's been training. Maybe he's a little bit overweight at the moment, but he's putting the effort in. Can assure you, it doesn't just happen. Some people are genetically gifted and they start out running and they're good, but then they have a higher level of responsibility, as it were, to do even better.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter where your starting point is, as long as you improve. And while I think setting a goal like you, if I could just contradict you a little bit, to say 6 minutes a K is good, we don't know what's good for you. I've got a guy who wanted to break 2 hours 20 for Berlin Marathon. But he ran to the best of his ability and he ran 2 hours 22. Has he failed? No, he hasn't. He's run to the best of his ability. 2 hours 20 is just a number. 6 minutes is just a number. It's just a thought that you had. It's not to say that should be your target. We need to assess you and see where you're at. And maybe the goal should be improving by a minute from where you are, or improving by a minute and a half from where you are, rather than judging yourself by others.
So what I've found in terms of when I'm running, right? I can go almost like consistently running maybe about 6:30 to 7 for the first 2 to 3 kilometers, right? And then also my area is bad because like I'm in the West Rand. It's like this, right? And so the first sort of 3 kilometers I'll run at a nice pace. I'll be quite consistent. It'll be anything between 6 to 6:30, sometimes to 7, depending on how much I've been training. And then I'll crash. I'll start doing 8 minutes a kilometer for the next 2 to 3 Ks. And then after that, I'm going like a Boeing. I'm like, I've got a consistent pace of like 6.5 for the next 5 kilometers. And then I find myself that I've done 10 Ks, but it's very, very up and down. I can't keep that consistency of pace over a longer period of time. And where am I finding that strength from? Between the first 3 kilometers, then the shit show of these 4 minutes, and then the last sort of 3 kilometers to get to 10 Ks to be able to get that consistency. What am I doing wrong? Why is there such a huge imbalance?
I think it's the expectation of yourself.
Yes.
6.5 minutes a K isn't that slow. I ran 10 Ks this morning at over 6 minutes a kilometer. So it's a case of saying, right, that's actually not bad.
Yes.
To say maybe 7:15 is okay for you. We don't know. Maybe 7.5 minutes a K is good for you. But to rather say on that 10 Ks, that's the pace that you should be running, rather than thinking you should be running 6.5 and putting yourself under pressure. You should be running slower and just enjoying your run. And then once you do that regularly, then suddenly you decide, okay, over 5K, you're going to push yourself, and you'll suddenly see the improvement.
You know, the worst thing that we've done throughout this podcast, and I just realized it now, that we've spoken about everything else except for diet. How important is diet? And, you know, because, you know, that's the one thing for me. I this cabbage eating and salad when it's cold. And, you know, how do you balance the eating to a point where it can actually work for your running or your exercising? Because they always say that, you know, it begins in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Well, to simplify things, you have two energy systems in your body. One is carbohydrate driven, sugars, high energy drinks, and so on. The other one is fat. We store fat, okay, so that it's available when we need it. Modern living, to an extent, has stopped us needing to metabolize that fat. So what happens is we eat a lot of carbohydrates, we store lots of fat. So you can choose whether you want to go high carb or whether you want to go low carb in terms of diet. The combination of exercise and a low carb diet is a fat burning factory. We know that. We see huge reductions in body fat.
Okay, but speak to me in a language that I understand.
Yeah.
So I must exercise, right?
Yeah.
And eat meat and leave out pasta, pap, and rice and all of that other cuck.
Quite right. Okay. So, and it's a lot easier than you think. I saw there was Druvorce here.
Yes.
Druvorce, when I'm on a low carb diet, is my go-to.
Yes.
I always have Druvorce in my car. If I'm hungry, I never eat chips. I'll eat some Druvorce. There are wonderful things to eat on a low carb diet. Typically, a fantastic omelette with bacon and cheese and mushrooms. There's almost no carbs in that. To eat at dinner time, steak, eggs,
yes.
All of those.
Keep going. I like this.
Yeah, you have all of these alternatives that you don't need to have carbohydrates. So if you choose to, you get your body. It doesn't stop eating; just eats the fat. And I found that when I went to a low carb diet,
yes,
my life changed, because I eat carbs when I'm on a high carb diet like crazy. I can't get enough because I'm a high carb burner.
yes.
That's my body. Your body may burn carbs less readily than what I do, so you're inclined to store more than I am to burn. So I'm continually hungry, and I'm grabbing chocolates and sweets and ice cream, and I can eat a liter of ice cream at a sitting quite easily. Yeah, very easily. I have to stop myself. But I burn those carbs. So as they come in, they burn.
Yes.
So I was continually hungry. When I went on to a low carb diet, I stopped being hungry. And that's why I'm on a low carb diet. It's not for weight necessarily, but just for life. I enjoy not being hungry. I'll eat one big meal a day sometimes, and that's all I'll have.
So, parting shots. How do we begin this journey? What's the most important thing that one needs to tell themselves mentally to become a part of Team Live Beyond, to become a part of Fordyce Fusion, Aqua Athlete, and this incredible journey that we're going on? If I'm sitting at home, I've just listened to this, what is the advice that you'd give to that individual that's there?
You must just believe you can do it. One of my athletes, Susan, she's lost 70 kilograms.
70 kilograms?
70 kilograms. It's taken her a couple of years, but she's transformed her life. And I think it's about transforming your life and enjoying being active. And once you make that decision that you're going to be active and you're going to find opportunities to be active, set yourself a short-term goal of an event that's not too far away. Set yourself a park run. In 2 weeks, you're going to go and walk it. And start, and you'll be surprised. There'll be lots of people there who will encourage you. And as soon as you see that there are lots of people out there just like yourself who want to exercise. They're not Bruce Fordyce's. They are people who just want to be active. And once you get into it, you're not going to stop.
And thank you very much. And as you heard, it's just ordinary people trying to do extraordinary things. And that's what Team Live Beyond is all about. That's what this podcast is all about. So please, please, please do join us. Get a hold of Gugu, get a hold of Lloyd, whether you see us in the streets, in the mall, anywhere, stop us, because we actually do want to inspire you to try and live your absolute best. And as you said, we live from one adventure to the next, and it's about chasing those sunsets or chasing those sunrises. Thank you very much for joining us.